Good morning and welcome. My name is Suzana Evans from MPS Training. MPS stands for Mitchell Personnel Solutions. Mitchell is the surname of one of our directors. It's also the name of the suburb where we're located. It's also the name of our mascot, Mitchell, our giraffe. So it makes it very easy for staff to remember who we are and where we are and where we live. I'm really excited about being invited to participate in this series of masterclasses, which is it's a unique concept, and I think that you'll all find it really valuable. My background is in people management, team skills, leadership, and communication. So obviously the perspective that we'll be looking at today is people and communications. So we're using the same case study that you've been looking at the last couple of sessions, and in particular we'll be looking at the relationship between David and Angela, and what effect that has on the business and the current issues that they have. The way that we'll be looking at it is through the use of a specific tool. Communication is quite a broad topic, so rather than covering it all, we'll be using what's called the HBDI tool. HBDI stands for Herman Brain Dominance Instrument. Has anyone heard of it before? No? Good. I always like delivering new stuff. Herman Brain Dominance Instrument is a tool that was developed by a fellow called Ned Herman in the early 60s. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of time to really look at the history and the science behind the tool, but I can say that it's the most scientifically validated psychometric tool currently on the market. You may have heard of tools like Myers-Briggs. Yeah, most people have heard of that. It's similar to that, however, the difference between HBDI and MBTI, or the main difference, is that HBDI looks at things more from a physiological level rather than a psychological level. So we're actually looking at the different ways that people think rather than looking at different personalities. The case study actually lends itself really well to this, because our two main characters in the case study, David and Angela, are actually really quite different. And we're going to have some fun analysing what we think their thinking styles are and what the issues might be between the two of them. Any questions so far? No? Good. Okay. Do we need to go? All right. So I say that, we're all different. We say it all the time. Do we think differently? Are we actually that different? To demonstrate it, I want you to think about, if I gave you a task, what is the first question that immediately comes to your mind? So if I say to you, I want you to build an ark, take just a couple of seconds and think, okay, what's the first question that pops in your head?
Why?
Why? All right.
Get that again.
Okay, so why? Why what? Why do you want me to build an ark? And that's important. Why? Why do you need to know that before you start the task?
You want to understand what the end goal is.
You need to know its purpose.
Purpose, okay. So the purpose is the most important thing to you at this stage? Yeah? Okay. And
Said what? Like it's in what do you want me to build it out of?
okay. What is it going to be made of? So maybe the specifications. What will it look like? What do you want the end product to look like? Okay. Did anyone think of anything different? Yes, Suzanne. Where?
Where do you want to build?
Where do you want it? Okay, and that's really going to depend on what it looks like. How big is it? Is it something we can build on this table, or do we need a stadium? Yeah? Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, well, I thought what will it look like, not what is it made out of, but
Yeah.
what is its design.
Design, okay. Design, and what does the end product actually look like when it's finished?
Who needs to build it?
Who? So are you expecting just me to do it, or will I have a team of people who will be responsible? Yes?
I was going to say, when is it needed by?
When? That's funny, because the last person I asked this question to, that's the first thing they said. I said, I want you to build an up. When? Like, now that is a can-do attitude. Don't care why or how or anything. When do you want it done? I'll do it. She would make a very good PA. Okay, so where, when, who, why, what? So immediately we see people are thinking differently, aren't they? They have different preferences and priorities. And how often do we think about this when we set a task or when we communicate with a business partner or a staff member or a client? When you ask for something, are you framing it in a way that will cover all the key questions, depending on what their thinking style is?
Some questions cover others.
Some questions do cover
The purpose, for me, the purpose is the paramount question, because
Yes.
if I know what it's for, then I know how long I have to build it, what it needs to be built out of, who I need to build it. All the other questions are covered by that,
Yeah,
for me.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I'd be the same. And that would be my first question is why? But we can't assume that that will be everyone's first question.
Yeah.
And that's my point, is where is everyone else coming from? And how can I meet their needs when asking something? And we're going to explore that more. So I'll just leave that, just ponder on that for a moment. Okay, another example of how we think differently. Now this was pretty viral over the, a few years ago, but it's still a bit of fun. Has anyone not seen it?
Yeah.
Good, excellent. All right, so without any discussion, I want you to put your hand up if you see the girl spinning in a clockwise direction.
Well, initially I did. And
Initially?
then it's changed.
And then she changed.
It's changed. Yeah.
How many of you see her spinning in an anti-clockwise direction? So it's about half-half. How many of you going, what the hell? What are you talking about? She doesn't change. Of course she's spinning in a clockwise direction. Alright, the theory behind this, and I have to say there's not a lot of scientific research behind it. However, the theory behind it is if you are right brain dominant, that is, the right hemisphere of your brain is more dominant than your left hemisphere, then you are more likely to see the girl spinning clockwise. If you are left hemisphere dominant, then you're more likely to see her spinning anti-clockwise. If you can get her to switch, at the point where you're getting her to switch, you're actually using both sides.
Very right brain.
Now the good news is that we all use both sides. We just have a preference or a dominance for one side over the other, which means that you can get her to switch with some practice. Now I'm fairly right brain dominant, so I thought the whole world had this conspiracy against me and there's no way that she swapped. It was just untrue and everyone was having a joke on me. After a couple of days of very low productivity in my job, I got her to switch. I'm like, oh, she does turn the other way. And the way that I did it, for those of you who are struggling, and I know you're not going to listen to anything else in this presentation unless you can get her to switch, the way that I did it is that I looked at her ankle, and instead of imagining the ankle going the whole way around, you try and picture her doing this kind of motion, just going left and right. Some people said they do the same thing with the hips. I've got a few nods.
Yeah, the shadow underneath her foot works.
And the shadow underneath her foot, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to give you a copy of this so you can practice later, okay?
Which
So
is,
no, I will upset
can you
you.
remind me which is which? The creative is your left?
Clockwise, creativity tends to come from the right brain.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, the left brain is more logical. And we're actually going to look at that. Yes.
Every time I look at you, which is in the corner of my eye, she changes direction.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So she's responding to me. That's because I'm controlling her with this. No, I'm not. Okay, so I've been teasing you with this model. What does it actually look like? So this is Herman's whole brain model. The actual instrument is a 120 question self-assessment. And it took him something like 10 years to develop this questionnaire because he wanted to ensure that all the questions were really quite purposeful in measuring a certain type of thinking. And then what you get out of it is a profile that shows you whether you are more left brain or right brain, whether you are more cerebral or limbic.